Hello and welcome to LDEI Live Online. I am your host, Sheila Cry. Today, Les Dames d'Escoffier from London and chapters around the United States will share with you their tips from years of experience as hosts of fabulous holiday parties. Practical advice that you can use when you host your own holiday gatherings. We especially thank Tito's Handmade Vodka for generally sponsoring this event. We have a fast-paced program with 13 speakers. I will introduce each one in just a sentence or two. To keep us on track for time, I will sound a chime to let a speaker know that there is 1 minute left to wrap up. In a week or so, you will receive a follow-up email that shares a link to the recorded event and also a link to the 2025 LDEI hosting guide. The speakers will be properly identified and they will share their tips, photos, and recipes in a useful electronic booklet. This online event is like the hors d'oeuvre course to whet your appetite, and the holiday hosting guide will give you the recipes and illustrations for future reference. And now let's begin. Our first speaker is Laura Briscoe, executive chef, founder of Laura's Gourmet, and maker of gourmet pantry food lines and countercool kitchen workspace solutions. She is a member of the LDEI Arizona chapter. When planning a party, begin by considering the needs of your guests. Laura?
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. I'm super excited to be here, and here we go. Just by way of background, I spent approximately 20 plus years doing private parties, private events, in-home and in corporate offices, etc., always off-premise. And my favorite thing was when the host said to me, "You pick the menu," which would just send me over the edge because now I have to figure out what it is that they wanted. But over the years, once I got them to at least identify a protein, then we could build a menu out from there. So I'll just take a few minutes to share some of the tips that I've learned over the years for entertaining, whether it's traditional holiday entertaining or going off script, so you can have an amazing event every single time. So with that being said, next slide. So as the host, you do have the responsibility of creating a guest-friendly menu, but your guests also have the responsibility of sharing with you if they have an allergen or some type of aversion that they really need to let you know about. So you can only take your menu planning so far without the help of your guests. Make items that you're serving easy to pick or pass. And when you're doing that, it's easy, very easy to take the same menu item and adapt it a little bit to make it allergen friendly. So in the case of this photo, for example, I have a sample of, these are caprese skewers with a little bit of pesto, and these are also caprese skewers with the basil oil, but on these there's tortellini, which of course is has a gluten thing. So at least there are options available. Let your guests know by way of marking on your buffet what you're serving, because then, especially if there's something hidden in that allergy or hidden in that item, they know, and there's not going to be an uncomfortable moment for anybody. We all love the charcuterie board. We all love the presentation of this big board with everything on it. I learned very early on that cross-contamination happens very quickly. People put knives into different things. People take the bread and they will move it over to where the cheese is. And now you have, like I said, cross-contamination. So keep items separate. And it looks beautiful when you do that anyway, because you have multiple platters featuring different things. Oops. A la minute at the last minute has no place at a party unless you're only doing a plated party for maybe 6 people. So I recommend that you choose items that you can make ahead and then heat and eat and enjoy very, very easily. And do some fun things too, especially for the smaller parties that you might be hosting. And then for items that might be a little more pricey and you only have a budget for so much, then do them as small bites and it will still give the same delightful experience for your guests, but it will also be a little easier on your pocketbook. By the way, signature item, the vanilla bean butter post lobster bite, never fails. And then, of course, little desserts mean no guilt, and people seem to enjoy having all the different types of bites to enjoy. So, real quickly, foolproof tips for enjoyable entertaining. Be mindful of allergens, but also make sure your guests share that with you. Weather, if you are putting out invitations or verbal, whatever you do, if your party's outside, share that with your guests because they need to be able to dress appropriately for the weather. If it's chilly, here in Arizona, we entertain at night all the time in the wintertime, and it gets cold. It does get cold here. Again, make sure you choose most things that can be made ahead. Avoid doing last minute cooking. And then the most important tip that I could ever offer is hire someone to help you. Make sure they're managing the serving, make sure they're managing the dishes. That should not be your job. You did all that amazing preparation. You want to be entertaining and be entertained. You don't want to be in the kitchen doing the dishes and then ruining the wonderful experience you just created for everybody else for yourself. And I only know that from experience. So thank you.
And thank you, Laura. Good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning. I'm going to take you to Provence. I'm a food
Well,
writer.
let me just say a couple words about you first.
So sorry.
Elizabeth,
So
it's
sorry.
fine. Elizabeth Luard is a cookbook author, a journalist, and an illustrator. She is a member of the LDEI London chapter. She will tell us about a French Provençal Christmas tradition. Elizabeth?
Thank you very much indeed, Sheila. Just to put myself in context, I'm a home cook. So what I'm talking about is basically when my children were small and my grandchildren were small. So I've gone from one generation to another. And when my children were teenagers, if we have a look at the, Sheila, if you can put up that first picture, we can go straight to Provence, as you can see. Continue to share this. Okay, so there's three of my children. I think the fourth one is probably taking the photographs. I'm on the right, can't really recognize me now. Youngest daughter on the left, son, eldest, Fran next to him, and the one who's taking the picture is Poppy. So what we used to do was go every year to somewhere we hadn't been before. I did actually bring my children up in Spain, so I'm guilty of generally dragging them around the place and putting in, they had to go to different schools and things like that. So in a way, they were quite used to setting up Christmas somewhere that none of us used to. So if you look at the table, this will be all the shopping that we have done for Christmas Day. And we're out looking down over the Provence landscape in the general direction of the sea. And because we are in the Alpes, we're up high, it was quite cold. And I learnt over the 3 or 4 Christmases that we spent there to shop as my neighbors did. I mean, I could speak Spanish as a child, I mean, French as a child, so I didn't have any problem doing the shopping or asking questions. And because we rented a house, we were able to find out what people were doing. So the Christmas in Provence starts on the eve with the souper maigre, which is the fasting supper, which is a really good idea because it means that instead of going whacking straight into the Christmas festivities, you have no wine, is water, and it will be a very specific menu, which includes salt cod. And that's quite a challenge. But again, it's in Provence, it's very luscious. It's brandade morue, if anybody knows that one. It's with cream as well as salt cod, and you have to salt cod ahead. So you've got to prepare ahead. And then it's a soupe de lasagne. You must tell me if I'm running out, because I can very easily do that. A soupe de lasagne, which will be a vegetable soup with noodles, sometimes homemade, but they're all in the market and available. and they have frilly edges. And you will be told that that is in order to show the Christ child's his curls. So there's a conversation that goes on with this food that goes on throughout the time. So they will be talking about the salt cod, which is fasting, and it's a whole kind of history lesson as to how it arrived there and when it arrived there. I've written about it in a book called Sacred Food, Cooking for Spiritual Nourishment. So I had to really have a look and see that what I was saying wouldn't get me in trouble, as you can imagine. Always a problem. So in the middle of the meal, Christmas Eve goes on all night, believe it or not, children and all. So it starts at about 7 in the evening, carries on till just before midnight, when people who are going to go to church go off to the midnight mass. And then there may be play done by the local school children of the arrival, the baby arriving in the cradle, and that kind of thing that goes on. And that is mirrored when you get back home, that you have a cradle, a belen, where the Holy Family is in a stable, and it's usually it's a chance for bad behavior. Always in festivities, there's a situation where people behave badly, and bad behavior are the little figurines that crowd round the crib, and they are usually you know, the mayor who's pinched everybody's money, and the policeman who's arrested somebody's child, that kind of thing. So there'll be a lot of interest in that. So when you come back from midnight mass, then you set up the 13 desserts. The 13 desserts is the 13 desserts, which is not, as you might suppose, a lot of kind of cakes and things you have to prepare advance. But if you look at it, it has 12 different nuts, dried fruit. There is grapes in there. There are actually, that should be nougat, but it's actually, it's not nougat. I couldn't find that. So it's Turkish delight. Sorry about that. The next one round will be figs, and the figs, the dried figs. And there's another story attached to the figs, the raisins, the almonds, and the hazelnuts. Oh no, there's walnuts in there. It's a movable feast. So having learnt the kind of principle that you have to have these 12 desserts, and the 12 desserts signify the apostles, and the bread in the middle is Jesus. So you never use a knife on it, you cut it. And these sort of traditions are everywhere. Anybody who has a tradition that comes from an ancient tradition will know that will recognize some of this. There's all the vocabulary for festivities is quite small. You know, it's nuts for regeneration, for something. It happens at Easter as well. There is sugar for the taste of the sun. You will find apples for something fresh. The grapes will be hung on a beam throughout November, so they don't rot. So everything is very carefully thought about. If I'd been able to find pears ahead, I would have dipped them in red sealing wax to seal the end. So in a way, it's you can make up your own storyline. So it's lovely for children, and it's always small amounts, so that here we are. Yes, that's my sketch. We can kind of see what goes on. That's the proper way it should be. A pomp in the middle, or sometimes an apple pie, but you could equally well have something that you like to cook in the middle. But it should be round, although not always, because we will see the last one, which isn't round. And these traditions, that's fougasse. Again, it's not something I necessarily recognize from where I was in this part of Provence. It was definitely the pompe à l'huile, which is what I sent you. and which you might be amused to see that I baked yesterday, and it really good for breakfast. It's much too big, so it wouldn't go in the middle. So anyway, it was really good for breakfast. I put walnuts in that, and I could have put raisins. And that, again, is a sort of conversation that you can have. So the idea that you are putting up something that people can help themselves to throughout the 12 days of Christmas. So you don't dismantle it until the Three Kings arrive on the 6th of January, which is when all French children are supposed to get their presents, which is when the Three Kings arrived. Are you telling me, Sheila, that I'm still got time, or shall I stop what I'm doing right
No,
now?
it's time to wrap up.
Yes, I thought he probably was. Anyway, so it's replaced every day. So it's something children have to do. And the idea that you have something that people can come in is set by the door. You know, have a swig of my water. So that visitors come in, so you don't have to go and find something for them to eat. So before I splutter out of the way, that's roughly what I have to say. Anybody wants to ask me?
Thank you, thank you, Elizabeth. And welcome, Nancy. Nancy Scanlon is an author, a speaker, and educator. She's the author of food service management books and is an international speaker. She will share a genius tip for unmolding beloved traditional gelatin dishes. She's a member of the LDEI South Florida chapter. Nancy?
Thank you, Sheila. Good morning and greetings, everyone, from sunny but chilly Sarasota, Florida. Holiday food traditions bring up memories of my mother's holiday gelatin salad molds. Half-remembered holiday meals come into view with colors, tastes, smells, and textures. This memory is tangy and cold. It's green, it's bright green, it's slippery with bits of cream cheese and chunky bites of pear, lime pear gelatin salad. A molded gelatin salad that can be part of a holiday meal or bright and festive on a party buffet table. Another memory is spicy, full of fruit, cranberries, cooked down with sugar and gelatin, fresh cranberries from the bogs of Massachusetts, red and ripe. And added to that is chopped celery and nuts. You'll receive the recipes and the photographs for both of these molded salads on the LDEI online holiday hosting guide. So they'll be there for you. All right. It's been really fun to find many of us have so many memories of gelatin salads and desserts. So please share your stories and recipes on my Facebook page. The link is in the holiday hosting guideline online, and then we can all read about each other's memories. But now on to the real challenge, molding and unmolding. So when I go to find molds, right, these are my mother's molds, right? And even this mold is my mother's mold, which sometimes she used as a cake mold, but you can see how old it is and how beaten up and so forth it is. But it's a very handy, best-sized mold. Now, the good thing about these molds, obviously, is that they're metal. So when we go to unmold them, okay, we're not trying to deal with plastic or other synthetic finishes. We've got something that's really easy to handle. Now, I had a big problem finding new molds. I went to William and Sonoma, assuming they would have molds such as these. They tried to sell me a cake pan. Now, and this has been the story all along. Every time I've tried to buy molds lately, even Walmart, everybody wants to sell me cake pans. Well, the problem with this is, number one, it's huge, right? It's big. Number two, it's very thick because it's a baking pan. And number three is it's filled, okay, with all kinds of ridges on the inside of the mold, which is going to make it tricky when you want to try and get the mold out of this pan. So yesterday in the dollar store for $1.75, I found this guy. And while it's a baking pan, actually it makes pretty good mold. It's nice and lightweight and it's good size. The only challenge is that the inside of it tends to have all these little ridges. But, you know, number one, it could be to the benefit of the mold. Or number two, you could just take a hot knife and run it around the edge of the mold and smooth over the ridges. All right. So let's take a look at, all right, getting it out of the mold. All right. So the first thing I do is, number one, I'm dealing with metal. So I don't put my mold in the sink. I put my mold in the bowl. I fill the bowl with hot water. Actually, I use it from the kettle, right? Not from the sink, because now I want this water to be hot. And then I want to be able to put the mold, and I'm going to do this right now. I want to be able to put the mold inside, okay, of the bowl. But remember that this is metal, so we can't fill the bowl to the top because everything will splash out. But if we do it, we want to be able to move the mold, not up and down, but just sideways, just feeling the tension releasing itself from the gelatin, and the side of our pan. So the next thing we're going to try and do here, because I actually had the gelatin cranberry mold in the refrigerator. So we're going to try and give it, and hopefully this is going to work. Okay. Now, the one thing you don't want to do is try and go this way. What you want to do is you want to be able, all right, to tip the mold onto the surface. In this case, it's a glass cake stand. It could be a flat plate, all right? And then hopefully the magic happens and it's right out, okay, of the pan. And then we're going to add a little bit of parsley around the edges just to kind of give it a little bit of color and somewhat in the middle. So that actually works.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you.
And that's our molds for today. Thank you.
Yes. And good afternoon, Claire. Claire Donovan is the founder of Cooking Champions, which was galvanized by the pandemic lockdown to start providing meals for those in need. This is their sixth festive season to provide essential support, warm meals, and comfort to individuals and families over the Christmas period. Claire is a member of the LDEI London chapter. Claire?
Thank you, Sheila, for giving me the opportunity to talk about what we do at Christmas. Slightly different to the original plan, but very important nonetheless. So for the past 5 years, Cooking Champions has prepared and delivered lunches to people who would otherwise go without. Each year, we open our doors on Christmas Day to serve a 3-course meal for those who don't want to spend the day alone. For some guests, this will be the 4th Christmas they've shared with us, a testament to the sense of belonging and community that our festive meals create. Sadly, some of our regular guests have recently passed, so we'll be missing them greatly this year. However, what begins as a warm meal often becomes a lasting connection, reminding people they are seen, valued, and never forgotten at Christmas. We also provide many key ingredients to those families that we support on a weekly basis so they can prepare their Christmas meal for their family. Now, depending on the families that we work with, some opt to have the meals made for them, especially if they have health or housing issues. But for others, it's really, really important, and it empowers people to create a special family moment and ensure family traditions can be upheld despite facing very challenging situations. One year, about 2 years ago, on Christmas Eve, we work with a London-wide charity that gave us 60 turkeys on Christmas Eve, and there were a lot of happy tears when we could provide basically a full shop for people, and yeah, it made some people's Christmases. Okay, so how does it work? Each Christmas, our team of staff and volunteers come together to make sure no one is in our community is left hungry or alone. It starts with fundraising. We normally run a crowdfunding campaign, and local businesses sometimes offer to help support us. We have to raise about $12,000 a month to keep our kitchen open, and typically we have to raise an additional $6,000 at Christmas due to the large number of additional people that we support. We then open our registration process to work out how many people we'll be serving. This is across a couple of boroughs in London, and it's normally about 200 meals. And then it's got how many are in each family, how many children, how many adults, dietary requirements, the time of delivery, delivery routes. For some people it's a logistical nightmare. For a bit of a geek like me, I absolutely love the planning aspect of things, so I totally related to Laura's talk earlier. And then we have our amazing volunteers. So working with our trained volunteers, we're able to pick up guests, prepare and serve the food, the all important washing up, and even some entertainment thrown in. And again, relating to what Laura was saying, we have very clear expectations with our guests. A lot of them are elderly, so the more information we know about them, the more that we can prepare them. Some people are anxious about eating in front of other people. Who's picking them up? Are they going to be sitting next to someone that they like? Will people be able to understand what they're saying? And we have to unfortunately, we have to have a clear timings on the day as well, because some people are very, very hesitant to leave and they don't want to go home on their own. But all of that aside, when it's showtime, we celebrate Christmas in style. We open our doors, and we have now partnered with the church. So we have, this was the church last year, is the first year it was in the church, a 3-course meal, and we welcome anyone to the church, all faiths and none. So guests enjoy good food, friendly company, and a joyful, inclusive atmosphere. And alongside the meals, we'll distribute small gifts and some festive treats. So to finish off, I would have to say, in terms of hosting and looking after people, Christmas doesn't have to be elaborate, especially in the current times if it's going to create a financial strain for those involved. What truly matters is the sense of togetherness, kindness, and community spirit. Sharing food, laughter, and connection means far more than expensive gifts or decorations. It's the simple, genuine moments that make Christmas special for everyone. Thank you for your time.
And thank you, Claire, for your outstanding example. Hello, Mindy. Mindy Crostato is the owner and founder of the Decadent Restaurant Group in Portland, Oregon. She built multi-million-dollar businesses starting out of her home 16 years ago. Mindy is a chef, baking instructor, chop champion, and macaron queen of Portland, Oregon, where she's a member of the LDEI Portland chapter. Mindy?
Hi, thank you, everyone. Yes, my name is Mindy Crosado, and I wanted to share something that we're doing at my chapter in Portland, a cookie swap. And I know we didn't obviously invent a cookie swap, but we have found a really cool way to actually do it not just as a typical like social thing you might do with your friends, but as a fundraiser for our chapter, or could be any cause that you want to raise money for. But the tips I'm going to share obviously can also be applied to just a neighborhood cookie swap too. So yeah, let me try to share my screen. Oh, there. Oh, can you see it?
Yes.
Yes, so we found a space at Smith Tea, was very generous. Event spaces often are just looking to utilize their spaces on down days. So, you know, on a Wednesday, this event space doesn't have anything going on, so they're letting us use their space. So many, you know, companies are always looking to just donate space to nonprofits just to be a part of the community, and it, you know, looks good for them as a company too. Yeah, so Smith Tea, let me click on it. Yeah. Is hosting us. We made a cute little graphic. So basically what we did is we just created a Google Doc and curated people that we know are bakers, people in our chapter or just other bakers in town that we want to invite. It's definitely good to get the ball rolling with people you know that love to bake, and that's not going to be a hardship for them. You know, it's not everybody is a baker. But yeah, it's just a really fun and memorable, and a good way to share the lifting. So it's not just one person making all the food for the party. So yes, just a Google Doc where you can email it to people and that everyone can see what everyone's committed to bringing. And that also helps me curate, okay, I'm thinking about colors and textures. Cookies can be notoriously just brown on brown on brown. You know, you definitely need a crinkle cookie in the mix to get that pop of black and white. You need some shaped cookies that have color and decoration in the mix. And then get a big table and encourage people to bring cute platters, but obviously there can be quite a wide variety of different type of platters that people bring. So I like to get lots of tree slices, some pine cones, just pick some greenery from outside, some ornaments on the table, something to make it cohesive, because it's all about having that beautiful picture. So when we share on our social media, everybody's going to just be like, oh my gosh, that looks amazing. Think about other food. Obviously, we can't all sustain just on cookies and sugar. So we're gonna have charcuterie and soup, welcome pours of some bubbles or any options, so that people can gather and basically build the display. Like, don't start eating the cookies, start eating these other things before we dig into the cookies. And as much as I really, really want to make signage for the cookies in advance based on what people have told me in the Google Doc they're going to make, there is always people that are going to deviate and oops, I ran out of walnuts. I threw in hazelnuts at the last minute. And if you've typed up beautiful signage where you've said this has walnuts and then whoopsies, it has hazelnuts because they did a last minute substitution, I always want to have some blank signage where I can just handwrite or just do all your signage handwritten as they arrived. That way you can for sure get the exact cookie that it is, allergens. I usually put, you know, at the bottom, so it's super clear what has what. Definitely do some kind of disclaimer to everyone, the people know that these are handmade cookies. These are not sort of a little eat at your own risk disclaimer. So the way that we've monetized ours is that we basically, each baker is bringing, there's going to be 12 bakers bringing 24 cookies, and then you sell tickets to people that want to just show up. So that's what we did in the chapter. That's where the fundraiser portion comes in. And then always encourage people to bring Tupperware so that you can be super sustainable as you go down the line. Each person gets one of each cookie. But always know that there's going to be someone that doesn't bring Tupperware. So I have some paper plates and one gallon Ziploc bag to go over their plate. And think about leftovers. Yes, we can kind of snack on the leftovers because not everyone will have an exact number of cookies in their batch. But think about bringing some extra tins and, what local shelters or even teacher gifts for my kids' teachers at their school. Consider what you're going to do with those leftovers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mindy. Hello, Kathy G. Mesrano. Kathy G. is the founder and CEO of an eponymously named company, Kathy G. and Company, which is widely recognized as the premier special event and wedding catering company in Birmingham, Alabama, where she is a member of the LDEI Birmingham chapter. Kathy?
So
Good.
my topic is platters, tablescapes, fall entertaining. And I start off by really saying, let nature be your guide. I mean, nature is, look at right now what's going on in Birmingham. It is a plethora of beautiful fall colors. And that is the inspiration, along with going to your local farmer's market, which we have a fabulous one here. And that's where I collect things for presentation and tablescapes and for home entertaining or for catering. So between nature and farmers markets, I think that's your starting point. Texture is another thing in presenting a tablescape in home entertaining, or as I say, even for large groups. I think layering, doing different levels is quite important to do. You don't want everything just flat. In fact, a competitive caterer in Birmingham told me before you came and started, which has been about 40 to 50 years ago, I think, everything was just a lineup of Schaefer's or a row of plates on the table. But I think you need to do levels up and down. And at the base of these levels, I like to nest some, for example, in fall, I just did something Sunday night with pomegranates, apples, pears, all the seasonal fruits that look wonderful, persimmons, and put a little greenery under it. Even if you're doing something on a riser, I think you need to treat the base of it to make it a little more incorporated into the whole table look and theme. And that creates abundance. I think abundance is this is a photo of layering. You can see how things are on risers, platters are on pedestals, and this is at home. This is actually just on a buffet piece at my home. And I do love to, by the way, cut pomegranates, as you can see. That looks really great to present them in that manner, and as well as whole. But love to incorporate all these items, this plethora of nature into whatever your buffet is. So we do have the layering and the pure abundance, which everybody's got tiny pumpkins, gourds, all of that can be incorporated, even if you're using formal silver and china, which people still do. We're in the South and people do love their china and silver for these family occasions that are just annual events. But I think you can certainly add a little modern touch to it by incorporating these elements of nature and layer it. So I think that we've got the farmers market here. You can see we have a fabulous one here. It's called Pepper Place Market. And when we had the international board, we took them there, and it's just wonderful it's just straight farm to table farmers that we can use their wonderful bounty to create home events, or I get things for our catering events, large cabbages that have all the outer leaves, gourds, you have the kagutsa, the squash, I think that all of that just really adds to a beautiful table. So all of these are so necessary. The texture, varying heights, nature is a base. I even did lemons. You can see in one photo that I did asparagus one time too, like this, where you just really get styro disc and put some greenery behind, use picks, and just build it up to give you a little more interest. And seasonal foods, it just really is just who we are and what I enjoy doing. And and one of our members, by the way, Tina Payne, has Earthborn Pottery, and she just did this piece, and it is in the James Beard House now. A chef wanted to use it for a dinner for about 50, and it is now staying in the James Beard House. So she will have that, and they even want to use more. Tina also has her line of pottery in the Bellagio in Las Vegas, which I hope everybody's coming to the conference. And she also has it in Dubai, Saudi Arabia. She is everywhere with her pottery. So I want to give a shout out to her. We're very proud of her. And generally, so in entertaining, I always say, go big. Don't be afraid to go to big. I think you have to have a wow factor in anything you do.
So, Carrie Kelly, welcome.
Thank you.
Carrie is a blogger and a member of the LDEI Washington, D.C. regional chapter. She transitioned from owning 4 culinary retail stores in the D.C. area to blissful retirement, cooking for friends, and occasionally writing a blog called Carrie in the Kitchen. She also coaches women business owners. Today, she'll share her best tips for making parties enjoyable for the host. Carrie?
Welcome, everyone. So I love holiday entertaining. And the main thing I love about it is everybody is so jovial during the holiday season. And I think with entertaining, what we want to do is to make sure that we as the host can enjoy our guests. So over the years, I have come up with a few tricks and tips and recipes to make sure that happens. Some of this is obvious, but planning is certainly key. The main thing is to start to plan your menu well ahead of time so that you create and curate a collection of food that is finger food. So my number 1 rule for holiday entertaining is no forks and no plates. So this means finger food. And there are so many fabulous recipes that are great for just picking up by hand. I think this does a couple of things. In addition to freeing us up as the host, it also allows our guests to have at least one hand free to give a hug to their friend or shake hands with a new friend because they're not juggling a glass and a plate. So plan your menu, and I like to start at least 2, if not 3 weeks out, gathering recipes for good finger type food. Rule number 2 for an easy holiday entertaining trick is to make as much ahead of time as you can. If you love cooking for your friends, you can put together a menu of everything you make from scratch. As Ina Garten always says, there's nothing wrong with store-bought. So do a combination of store-bought and homemade. But regardless of where you source it, do ahead of time everything that you can. Make things that you can freeze and then just reheat that day. Plan as many things as you can that are eaten at room temperature, so you don't have to worry about pulling something out of the oven or something that should be warm turning soggy on your table. And then plan things that can be either prepped or cooked ahead of time so that the day of you're doing very little. Tip number 3 for easy holiday entertaining is to set your table and identify your serving platters at least a week in advance. If I'm doing a sit-down dinner party, I always set the table anywhere from 3 to 5 days out. So it's done. You don't have to worry about it. If you're doing a reception type holiday party, gather all of your serving platters. One of the things I like to do is to put my serving platters out on the counter with a little post-it note of what is going to be served on that platter. Do this well ahead of time so you're not scrambling at the last minute to figure out where am I going to put this beautiful trifle that I've made. And don't forget to identify the serving pieces if it requires a serving fork or a serving spoon. So that's tip number 3. And tip number 4 is to make your beverage station self-service and limited enough that you're not mixing cocktails. If you have friends that love their bourbon and soda, go ahead and put that on the counter. But identify an area where you can set up your beverage station for whatever you know your guests like to drink. Usually when I'm doing a big party, I keep it just wine and some sparkling water. I might try to do something a little bit festive depending on the number of people. So those are all my tips for trying to make entertaining fun, easy for your guests, but most of all so that you are out in the middle of everyone enjoying all of your friends. One of my favorite recipes that fits all of my tips is a 3-dip platter. And for the holiday season, I like to do a platter that has a white dip, a green dip, and a red dip. No food coloring involved. This can be a beautiful presentation. Dips are easy to eat and they can bring lots of different flavor. So an example is doing a red beet hummus, a white bean dip, and a green goddess dip. Put those on a rectangular platter or a circular platter and tuck sprigs of holly around it. And then have a basket full of crackers, breads, whatever you are going to invite your guests to use for eating your dips. That makes a beautiful presentation, easy to eat. It's also easy to refill with extras from the fridge if somebody loves one or all of your dips so much that they scoop them right up. I have provided a recipe for a green goddess dip, which I think you will love. It fits the bill for holiday entertaining and make ahead. It also is great for leftovers, and it's always a good idea to give a little thought to what you're going to do with leftovers. And this green goddess dip is wonderful spread on a sandwich or dolloped into your omelet the next morning that hopefully somebody else will make for you because you have just thrown a beautiful big party. So those are my tips for easy holiday entertaining. Obviously, doing so much ahead of time and not having plates and forks is also making cleanup very easy. You don't want to stay up all night long, even though I will say the after party conversation is usually part of fun entertaining. So if you keep your cleanup to a minimum, you can chat about your new friends, old friends, and whatever gossip there is from your party. So happy holidays to everybody, and thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Carrie, and good day, Lisa Genoway. Lisa is the tea master and blending master of the Genway Tea Company, which blends extraordinary teas for 5-star resorts, spas, and arenas. Today, she will share how to prepare a large batch tea-based cocktail. She is a member of the LDEI Boston chapter. Lisa?
Thank you, Sheila. This is a lovely event. I'm so excited to be here. And Carrie, everything that you said was so wonderful. I thought what I would do today is really share some tips and tricks that I've learned over the years for holiday tea cocktails. And now, with the trend also going towards mocktails, I thought that we could learn to use some teas and large batch them, but also set a stunning ambiance for your holiday guests. And so whether you're in a restaurant or a spa or entertaining at home, I am going to share my screen to give you some visuals. So really what I wanted to do is introduce you to the ambiance of using tea into your cocktails. And what it will allow you to do is, most of you have tea on hand for sure, but I'm going to kind of walk you through the guide of using tea in cocktails and mocktails for your holiday entertaining. I think that the most important thing is that we can do beautiful setups. So while Carrie was speaking about setting the bar and kind of creating a self-serve, that's what we're going to be doing here. Really using large batch vessels, which I'll show you, setting pretty lights, some what I call tea adornments, really pretty aesthetic things that will draw attention to the space. And then we can offer a mocktail, a tea cocktail. And the real vision is that we offer these in large batch so that the guests can just wander in and keep you free, as everybody here has spoke about. In doing so, I think that mocktails have been a huge trend. And so we can large batch these using things that you have on hand, mixing them with juices, always keep the ice on the side so that they're not diluted. And then we put pretty adornments in front, and I'll show you some of those. The idea really is that we're doing, got it. Very good. A tea cocktail bar. And so everybody has traditional tea carts in their home, either for wine or bottles, sometimes hidden in a bathroom, holding towels. But if we pull those out and dust them off, I think that they're stunning tea displays. And what you can do here is I'll show you some large vessels, but really put this as the focal point where guests can come up and see ingredients and smell the spices of the tea. And you'll have your glassware on one side and large vessels on the other, and they're helping themselves. But what it does is allow you to formulate these either the night before or the day of and just sit. And so if we do 5-gallon vessels, it should host about 50 people each. And so I love to do one mocktail in a large vessel, one cocktail hot and one cocktail chilled with the ice on the side. And then you can present these with bubbles, like Carrie was saying, champagne on the side or Pellegrino. So really they can take their tea cocktail or mocktail and top it with some bubbles, which is always festive, and then tea adornments inside. These are the vessels that I like to use. They're so easy to get from Amazon. I always use a gorgeous glass vessel for my mocktail and chilled cocktail. And what this allows you to do is see the spices, the star anise, the cloves, the ginger, all of the cranberries, all of the cinnamon sticks, so vibrant aesthetics. And then the warm one keeps it warm all night. What I want to do really is label these for the host, right? So it will be Sheila's holiday blend or Sheila's mocktail. And so what that'll do, it'll just put a little personalization to whoever's hosting it. But the vision really is that you guys can make the same recipe and serve it warm and serve it chilled. For example, if we were to take this is my spiced sangria tea. So what you'll do, if most of you have chai on hand, I just take my chai and I'm pairing it with hibiscus and rose hips and cloves and ginger and allspice. So I'm making it a little spicier. I even add black pepper to it. The ratio is 1 ounce of tea, and I put it into a sealable, heat sealable pouch. You can use your straightening iron, to heat seal the top. So something that just kind of clamps it. 1 ounce of tea will make a gallon. And so if you were to take just a large vessel in your kitchen and put, this is my ratio and I'm a heavy pour, so adjust accordingly. 1 bottle of red wine. I love something spicy like a Malbec. 1 bottle of cognac, 1 bottle of orange juice, and then this iced tea pouch and drop it all in. We're not adding sugar. The calories are just from those ingredients. And you literally leave the tea in the vessel either overnight, 3 days before, or the morning of. It's going to steep, so the longer the better, and it's ready for your use. And then you can take this large mixture and pour it into your warm vessel and pour it into your chilled. So you've really got two beautiful drinks, just with completely different vibes, being warm and cold. I think it's lovely to write a little note, because what I'm going to show you next is we should write a little note to do step by step, so that your guests know that this isn't necessarily a buffet table. What we want you to do is fill your glass with ice, or grab a warm glass or mug and grab an adornment, which I'll show you, should be lined up in front, and then top it with Prosecco or champagne. So a little guide for the guests in a pretty little gold frame is always lovely. What I mean about tea adornments is that I put little glass jars or gold jars or red jars right in front. Think of just a little appetizer dish, 3 inches round. And what these will hold is your cinnamon sticks, your star anise, edible flowers that so many of these chefs on here probably have on hand, fresh mint, a sprig of basil or thyme is gorgeous. We did freeze-dried strawberries in this one picture. Rose petals are so easy to get, but just lovely on there. And so the idea is that they pick their glassware, they pick their cocktail or mocktail, and they're adorning it with something. My favorite is a cinnamon stick, just because I love the flavor, but also it's so pretty. So that's what I mean by tea adornments. And this is the recipe for you. I also think it's lovely to do little tea parting gifts, like thank you for joining us. And that's as simple as grabbing a little holiday tea bag. All of us do holiday blends in individual packages. And so it's lovely to just leave a basket or a box by the door that says, thank you for joining us. And again, these can be personalized as well. So it would be Sheila's holiday blend, and they just take a little tea bag with them. I think that that's a lovely touch. This is a more fancy setup, but just to give you an idea, you can order these glass vessels from Amazon and just fill them with ingredients in the back. Pink peppercorns are stunning. All of those delightful things. That's pretty much it. I'm here if you have any questions or thoughts. Thanks, Sheila.
And thank you, Lisa. That was inspiring.
Good, thank you.
Yes. Okay. And welcome, Leanne. Leanne Lavin is the principal and curator of Duchess Designs, LLC. She is an author, a garden and tablescape designer, and a video podcaster. Buffet table and dining table arrangements amuse your guests and give their eyes something beautiful for their eyes to feast on. Leanne is a member of the LDEI New York chapter. Leanne?
So welcome everybody to our garden room in the Garden State here at our country house. So cheers to, I thank everyone for coming and thank you for including me. And I designed this tablescape for Thanksgiving, which is a most American holiday. So as a garden designer and an author, it's not a surprise that I design my tablescapes that tell a story with the garden to table decor. And what I'm hoping to share with you is that the art of the tablescape is really a joyful experience, not only creating it, but for your guests. It's really a high form of hospitality, I think, to welcome them. So it can be rather easy. I mean, there's a utility to a tablescape. You have your dishes and plates and cutlery and so on. But to create a true tablescape and telling a story, you can go from what Sheila tells me she likes is that Japania, so that it can be rather simple and elegant that way, but maybe use ikebana or lots of woods, or maybe a textured, table runners or napkins or so on. But for me, I like to create a tablescape that's more of a fantasy and a lot of glamour. So I bring a lot of the garden inside, and I'll show you a little bit of that like in a second. But I also wanted to talk about, and you'll see this in the handouts, that a tablescape is rather immersive and it uses all of our senses. So not only the sight, like what you're seeing, but sounds and texture and the fragrance. So to do a little scentscaping, our sense of smell is the one that really creates the memories the most. So whether you can see I use, you know, the oranges and the tangerines here with the cloves, you can put the, and that also involves some of the color displays here, but you can also put rosemary and sage and maybe tuck them into the napkin rings and so on. So I think of a tablescape as a rather thoughtful and meditative way to design your table. So whether you engage with your children or your family members at home, or if you're a caterer or in a restaurant, you can think like what Danny Myers does at his restaurants, where he has beautiful setups and tablescapes and barscapes. You can do the same thing also. So just to remember that perfection is not what we're after here. When it's not performative, I think that you bring your own unique vibrancy and personalization to it. So it's a story that you're telling, and you can't get your story wrong. So think about that. I just read a Butterball survey, so I'll read this. The turkey people here in the States, so they say that what folks most look forward to is spending time with the family, followed by the food. So I think that creating that sense of place and where you're all going to sit together is really key. So I think here, when you can see the tablescape, and you'll see it in some of the follow-ups, but just like fashion, you have to be layering. And so that affords you the ability to provide a lot of details. So I also like to use a lot of vertical elements. So you can use cake stands, pie, different things like that to elevate. And that gives you a little more real estate to be able to show. So as I said, you have the functionality. Of course, you have your plates and your cutlery and things, but you want to amplify whether it's a season or whether it's a holiday, but use that theme to be able to tell your story and create something that's very visual. For me, I like to repurpose things. So whether it's jewelry, whether it's mirrors, I put these under a lot of things. So especially at night with the twinkly lights that you can weave in among all your tablescape elements. And here I use music boxes. And so I can, oftentimes I put a appetizer or amuse-bouche in there. And it's a real delight when your guests open that up on the tablescape. So I also like to use a lot of unexpected colors that go together. So for this Thanksgiving, I have a lavender and a brown. People often think of browns and oranges, and here in our garden room, that's sort of the color scheme that we have. But if you think about using that, greens, purples, also my little fairy eggplants that I was showing you earlier. I like to mix the metals, so you have like bronze or gold or silver, copper, that's even in our floors here. So I like to mix that up a little bit. Think about your soft lighting. So besides your overhead, but you're going to have, I have always battery operated. I don't like to have the candles that are burning here. And music, you know, think about your playing. So this goes back to the sensuality of it, like the sight and the sound. I've also done fun things like have little fountains, you know, on the table. And I love the glamour of these beautiful napkin rings. So this is from Joanna Buchanan. So the pineapples that I have a theme here, which is a sign of welcome for the yellow. And then I have these with the tortoise shell with the stripy bees, and that goes with the tortoise shell glasses. And so here we have a lot of fox in our yards here. So I like to use that for the plates, the fox, and I layer that up. And but you can, that's telling your story, so that, you know, sort of creates there. I also use a lot from the name tags and menu items. I like to be able to put out your menu so that folks, when they're sitting down, they can see all the good things that are going to be coming. Here I've used feathered placemats, so it sort of goes with the season again. and a very luxurious table cover. We have a beautiful antique table, so I like to see that, but this table cloth, I guess you could say, but it has lots of pearls and glitter and glamour on it. And then the poppers, I guess this comes from a little bit of our British tradition, but at the end, the meal before the dessert, I like to be able to pop them open. And then there's lots of little gifts and fun things and crowns that you can use. So the other thing I like to do is mix faux and real. So you can see in the center table thing, I have some faux fruit and some real fruit. The other thing is not to have a high centerpiece because it blocks your conversation capability. So after I put this all together for you all, I read that Martha Stewart was saying that, you know, to use a lot of these like low vases. So I got a lot of these amber colors and it goes with the season colors. So I'm hoping that you can see here that it's a delight to be able to put together and to share with your guests and to make your holidays really special just by using your creativity. Thank you so much, and cheers to happy holidays.
Thank you, Leanne. Outstanding, inspiring. I forgot to mention when we were talking about tea-based cocktails, the holiday hosting guide that you will receive via email next week will include recipes courtesy of Tito's Handmade Vodka for a peppermint espresso martini and a pumpkin pie martini. Yum. And now, hello, Lisa Blunt. Hi. Lisa has been the Director of Marketing and Public Relations at Antoine's Restaurant in New Orleans for 11 years. Antoine's is the oldest continuously operating family restaurant in the United States, opening in 1840. Prior to Antoine's, Lisa held a variety of roles in the beverage and hospitality industry. She's a member of the LDEI New Orleans chapter. Today, she will share Antoine's signature dessert, Baked Alaska. Lisa?
Hello, everyone. And we're also in a cold weather snap like a lot of the nation here in New Orleans. So everyone's freaking out because it's under 50 degrees. But I'm going to talk about a cold dessert today. As Sheila mentioned, I'm with Antoine's Restaurant. I have the pleasure of being married to the 5th generation of the restaurant. So we do a lot of balancing act between the traditions of what we have done and those legacies, but also adapting to the new. And I think that's really important when thinking about the holidays, whether it's in your own home or within your own businesses. Everyone is compelled with all these lovely questions about allergies and sensitivities and all those things. And a lot of people have mentioned it and how important it is to be asking those questions up front and being able to tell our culinary staff what's going on with it. So again, I can't emphasize that more. So Sheila, do you have a picture of a baked Alaska? Okay, great. So this is our very famous baked Alaska, and here's a fun picture of it being flamed for an event. I think this was for a rehearsal dinner last year. Interesting about the baked Alaska, it was something that was developed in the early 1800s. It was done by a man who is a gastronomy scientist, and he was playing around with the conductivity of heat and in different food dishes, and he found that egg whites were a good insulator. So the ice cream was covered in egg whites. It was actually, ours is covered in a pound cake, then egg whites, so you could actually put it in the oven and the ice cream wouldn't melt. So this was happened in France. We know that Antoine had some experience with that. So he started our restaurant in 1840, but we know he was had some experience with it. There's also mention, it's been really interesting looking up Baked Alaska and some of the history of it because it's very conflicting, just like so many culinary lores out there and things that we see. And actually, there's mentions of the 1600s with a Chinese dish being similar to this. So I think that was interesting. Originally, it was called a omelette, obviously from the egg whites, Norwegian in France. I think it's because Norway was cold and there was kind of mountains and things. Then you see it kind of morphed in into some other things. The big name that gets talked about has inventing it from an American standpoint is with Delmonico's in New York. And they really are the one that coined Baked Alaska. And that was when the state of Alaska became a state in 1867. So that was from here on out, we've called it a Baked Alaska, but at other times we did have it on menus as Omelette Antoine or Omelette Jules, which was our second proprietor at the restaurant. So it's a signature, it's a celebration. It's great for the holidays. It is amazingly easy to do and also is easy to adapt to different sizes and things like that. We sell hundreds of these a week. There is, like I said, the option to flambe. It looks really cool. Table side service. I would test it out before you do it in your home. We are very, I actually tried to do it once at home. And of course, all the smoke alarms went off in the house. So that was an interesting Christmas Eve. But it is not hard to do. It just has to be practiced a little bit. It's a very simple recipe. Ours is made with traditional vanilla ice cream. It can be done with lots of different ice creams. Sometimes we'll see it with in the fall with pecan praline. It also can be done gluten-free with a different ice cream also. So it is one that everyone's talked about. Make ahead. You can make this ahead and put it in the freezer. I must say though, make sure you have the right space in your freezer. That's something that people will forget, and they'll create this big magnificent dessert and they have no place to put it in the freezer. So make sure you have it done then. It doesn't have to be, I call this the football shape. I've seen it done as individuals. If you look up some of the Delmonico's pictures, they do an individual one. Delmonico's did their Baked Alaska. We do ours with vanilla ice cream and then a pound cake, a buttery pound cake. So it needs to be a dense, moist cake. I've seen it done with carrot cakes. I've seen it done with lemon poppy seed cakes, all these different things. There's so many different versions you can make of it. You can also also you don't have to bake it to get the brown look. You can use a hand device to flame it, and that's I think in some ways a very safe way to do it, and it also gives a very consistent surface. And then you can take the remaining egg whites and you can put whatever saying you want. We've got so many sayings that people request. It's very entertaining. So again, why I love it. It has classic roots, but can be adapted today. It's make ahead. You can scale it up to be something big. You can scale it down. We also do it in sheet pans. Sometimes we have one that we show to a large party and then have sheet pans made for service. We also top it with chocolate fudge. We top it with caramel. We top it with candied pecans, fruit, all these different things. Again, very adaptable for seasonal flavors and fun to play with. And the last thing is make sure that you let it sit out for 15 or 20 minutes, depending on the size. Nothing's worse than bringing out something that's rock hard. So if you do make it and you put it in the freezer, let it thaw out slightly. But enjoy and please come visit us in New Orleans. It's a great time for the holidays and a fun place to be.
Thank you, Lisa. And please tell our audience what made the fireworks in that last photo.
Oh yeah, Sheila and I had the pleasure of meeting face to face with Sheila the other day. And what we do is when it does get flamed, and usually what we do is we heat up something like a brandy or a rum and put it around the base or onto the actual baked Alaska. And to spark it, we kind of flick in some cinnamon or some lemon peel, and that does create some sparks. Everyone loves a light up celebration, and again something fun for your house guests or your for everyone for the holidays.
Thank you, Lisa.
Mm.
And welcome, Deborah Minchef. Deborah is a past LDEI president, also past New York chapter president. She's a calligrapher and designer and a member of the LDEI New York chapter. Deborah joined LDEI in 2000 and is a former cookbook editor and copy editor. Deborah, what's the latest fashion in place cards?
Good question. And as you can see in the back, I have a few inks. A large part of my business is writing place cards, and especially at this time of year. We all know the basic white tinted place cards. I wanted to start by saying there is a reason to have place cards. If you are serving, no more than 6 people, chances are you don't need to provide place cards. But when you are having a dinner of 10 or 12 or 14 or more people, to be honest, it can make some people a bit uncomfortable to try to figure out where should I be sitting? Who do I know? Who am I going to talk to? So one of the things that place cards does is put your guests at ease. It also gives you an opportunity to come up with some creative seating, which I'll talk about later. What I wanted to do was share with you some options for place cards. We're not all calligraphers. We don't all write with a pointed pen. And the good news is there are many ways to write place cards that don't require that kind of expertise. And I'm going to go over some creative ideas for place cards, and you will be getting in the handout some of my favorite resources. So other than tinted place cards, you can also use flat cards. But how about thinking about fresh magnolia leaves, or at this time of year, pretty maple leaves that have fallen onto your lawn? You can also write on wide pieces of satin ribbon. You can write on oyster the middle in the inside of oyster shells. You can write names on the round side of shiitake mushroom caps. You can also think about a piece of stained glass. How about if you're having an Italian dinner, break off pieces of uncooked lasagna noodles and with a marker write people's names. So one of the other things that place cards can do is help to set the mood, help to celebrate. You can tuck things like rosemary sprigs, pine sprigs, ribbons, tassels. There are lots of different ways to adorn place cards, and then they become not just a place to tell people where you're going to sit, but it also can become a memento for the occasion which you're sharing with your friends. I'm going to actually go hopefully share my screen and show you some ideas. Okay, let me know.
Yes, we see it.
Okay, great. Now let me get rid of the share. Okay, so here is, I'm going to start. Okay, this is a very simple place card. I wrote out somebody's name, and then with a gold pen, I simply adorned it with little dots. Okay, I'm going to go to the next one. Okay. These are paper leaves, which I thought is a fun thing to use at this time of year. This is a piece of handmade paper, and I have offered you sources for wonderful decal edge handmade paper, and I put a hole in the edge and took a piece of silk ribbon, but you could add many other adornments to the edge. And notice I wrote in an ink that happens to match the ribbon.
Mm.
Valentine's Day. Well, these little sticky felts came from Paper Source. And if you're having a Valentine's Day dinner, you could write somebody's name and just put a couple of Valentine hearts just to make it more festive. I happen to have gotten this little charm after purchasing some perfume, and I thought, well, isn't that a fun thing to put this time of year, to put some kind of an inexpensive charm onto the edge of a place card. Again, it not only makes a place card prettier, but then your guest can go home with a charm that they can attach to a purse. This is called sea glass, and I bought this, and you have the resource for it, and it's this wonderful see-through glass. It comes in many shades. It comes in turquoise, it comes in mint green, it comes in an aqua, and I happen to write on it with a white ink, but you could just use a white marker. And then when you're done, if your guests don't take them home, you simply take rubbing alcohol and a piece of paper towel, and you can wipe off the name. And again, if you don't like the way you write a name, you wipe off the name with the alcohol, you let it dry, and then you start again. And these sea glass comes in different shapes. If you happen to have gift tags, which are a nice, inexpensive way to dress up a table, they make a lovely addition. I took a pointed pen and I added a few wheats and a couple of dots and some leaves. And again, I put on a piece of ribbon that coordinated with the place setting that I was using. I don't know why that bounced. Let me see. This is agate. Again, I got this, I believe in Etsy. Agate is a natural material. It comes in many shades. It comes in, this is a dyed blue, but it comes in natural, comes in pinks, it comes in greens. These are probably 3.5 inches long, which gave me enough room to write. And notice that script is just kind of bouncy and easy. It was not a fuss. And this is also another lovely way to put somebody's name, and it works the same way. Take your rubbing alcohol, wipe it off. You don't like how you wrote, and start again. I don't know why it's doing that. This is stained glass, and I did this for a gala for a museum. And it was really, they picked the stained glass. I'm not sure where they got it from, but they had it cut to size, and they gave me the wonderful task of writing on it. And the stained glass they chose, beautifully matched the decor. And those went home, by the way. Everyone took those home. Here, I just took some gold ink and an inexpensive paintbrush and just brushed across it very casually. And then once that dried, I wrote Ava's name on it. So another fun and a little unusual way of putting somebody's name. These were done for a client for obviously during the season. Once you decide on your design, it was basically a little red ribbon, and then I just tacked on some little decorations, and then the names went, in the empty space. So that was that. So I'm going to, let me stop the share. Okay. I also wanted to say that other things that you can use. What else did I have here? This time of year, there are gourds that are available in all the farmers markets. Take a magic marker and write on the gourd. It's a beautiful thing to put on the table, and you can, get them in many different colors and stripes and whites. So that's another way to go. And I think I pretty much covered everything. I have a whole list of all the different things that you can write with that work on place cards that don't involve you using a pointed pen. And I also wanted to talk a minute about where to sit, where to put people around a table. The way I usually do it is that if you're somebody who's a little on the shyer side, I like to put you closer into the middle. So you have people on either side of you. So the pressure is not on you to be the one who's going to start the conversation. And then that means people who are the chattier sorts, I put them closer to the ends, because if you have a large table of people, there's going to be more than one conversation going on. And those people who are more talkative and have that gift of gab are going to keep that conversation going around the table. One other thing that I do is I never have spouses sit together, and I never have couples sitting together, because what I have found is that spouses kind of blossom when they're not sitting next to each other. And it allows them to bring out other parts of their personalities when they're not sitting next to their other half or their better half. And I also find that if somebody is coming to one of my dinners and they may not know everybody, or they may be somebody who is a little more awkward, I usually put them next to me. And the reason I do that is I consider it a place of honor, and it also allows me to keep an eye on them to make sure that they are having a good time. And it also gives me the opportunity to introduce them to who is sitting next to them by connecting them by saying, guess what, so-and-so does this, or did you know that so-and-so does that? So that I am somebody who is also facilitating the conversation. So I think I pretty much covered it, and this was a lot of fun. And thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Oh, thank you, Deborah. And welcome, Francine Kowalski. Francine is the founder of Wine Distilled. She grew up in the wine and spirits industry and has over 30 years experience as a successful sales and marketing professional. She is a member of the LDEI New York chapter. Francine will give us advice about pairing wines with holiday dinner parties. Francine?
Hi, everybody. Here are my wine tips for hosting a joy-filled gathering. Just as Sheila said, I grew up in the wine industry, and I was surrounded by amazing dinner parties that my parents used to do, matching, it could be 10 courses and matching wines to it. And never thought I'd go into the wine business. Wound up going to the CIA, and what did I do? I wound up going into the wine business. So tip number one, and to me, this is probably the most important tip, and it's something my grandmother would always say to me, is know your customers. Meaning know your guests, and knowing your guests' level of wine knowledge and or their passion for wine. So, some of your guests may not have the same level of wine expertise or even passion as you do, but it's really important to make them feel at ease with your selections. Wine connoisseurs versus novices, or moderate levels of wine knowledge. Always serve your guests accordingly. The most important thing is always to make them enjoy the selections and feel at ease. Don't try and overimpress. Tip number 2, wine selection. So try to match your wines the best possible way with what you're serving. You might have a cuisine-themed dinner party, right? So you may be having tapas, or you may be having Italian. choose your wines to go with it. You know, do an Italian theme night, do a Spanish theme night. What that'll do is it gets people to dive into the conversation, and it really creates, it's almost like a conversation starter for them. Break the rules. Find a fun red to go with your fish course, or a hearty white to go with the meats. Again, this sparks conversation so that you have, you know, you have a topic starter right there. Try to have a good mix of wines. Start with a sparkling, a white, and a red. And unless you have super wine knowledge, like my parents had, you don't need to have much more than that. You don't need to have a wine with every single course. Even think of having a low alcohol wine. You know, that's a trend now. It's something that I work on, and people ask for it. And there's some really fabulous ones out there. And it's something that your guests might appreciate. Wine temperature. Don't serve your whites or rosés or even sparklings too cold. How do you know if it's too cold? If the bottle feels too cold, it's going to be too cold. So, you know, we'll say don't serve it lower than 55 degrees, but do you really take a thermometer out? No. Feel the bottle. If the bottle feels too cold, it's probably ice cold inside that bottle. Same thing with your reds. You don't want your reds too warm. If a bottle feels too warm to the touch, as I said, probably going to be that temperature. And the reason being is reds, if they're too warm, they're too acidic. They're not well balanced. You don't taste the roundness of the wine. And whites, on the flip side, you can't really smell the aromas. So you want to make sure you are serving them at the right temperature. And if you have that guest who's going to ask for an ice cube, let her do it. Don't be the person who says, oh, no, 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 you can't have that. Be gracious. It may not be for you. Let her do it, or him. Glassware. Glassware. Unless you have glasses on hand that match every single different type of wine, don't stress. This wine glass right here is called an all-purpose wine glass. It's about 10 ounces, I believe. It's perfect for everything. In fact, even the trend today is to serve your sparkling wine in an all-purpose glass. Two glasses per person is fine. One will do. And, you know, about a 5-ounce pour, which is about what this is, lunch. Wine needs to be fun, not stuffy. It needs to be relaxed. It doesn't need to be pretentious. Remember, also, it doesn't have to be expensive. It can be in a screw cap. And there are so many wines today under $15 that you really don't have to stress and find, you know, the most expensive things out there. There's lovely wine at all price ranges, but the most important thing is to have fun and make your guests feel comfortable.
Thank you, Francine. And good morning, Judith. Last but by no means least is Judith Bajan King, past president of the LDEI Arizona chapter and 2024 co-chair of the LDE International Conference. She is the owner of the Affair Catering for 7 years and Culinary Concepts and Extraordinary Cooking School for 16 years in Tucson, Arizona. She is a member of the LDEI Arizona chapter. Judith will demonstrate how to construct a bûche de Noël. Judith?
Good morning. It is still morning here in sunny and nice and warm, always, Arizona. So we are going to construct a bûche de Noël, and I want to just go through the whole process very quickly before I get to the final decorating. When it comes to the pan, I like to use a jelly roll pan, which I've always had in my cupboard. I grew up in New Zealand, and this was just a basic jelly roll pan that we would use for this. And I just want to show you, it's a little bit smaller. It's not a quarter sheet. It's a little bit smaller than a sheet cake, but you can use a sheet cake pan, and it'll just be a little thinner cake. So I put some parchment paper in the bottom, spray it with a little spray, or grease it with some oil. and pour my batter into that. It takes a few, or 7 minutes or something in the oven. And the trickiest part is when you get it out of the oven, you've got a damp towel, and damp, not wet, and another piece of parchment. And if you put your pan on the edge, bring this over the top and hold it as you turn it out. It turns out beautifully. Now, just a word of caution is that sometimes, because this is very hot, it creates some steam from your damp cloth. That's why I say not wet. Make sure that it's just damp. And so make sure you've got good long mitts on when you do this so you don't give yourself a steam burn. I take the paper off the bottom of my cake and then lay it back on and just roll it up very gently. Now, this is ready to go. I have also just wrapped it in plastic and foil and frozen it for a month or so, so that it's ready to go when I'm ready to frost it. This has about 3 moving parts to it, so you don't want to do it all at once. The next thing is your frosting. And this is not just a regular buttercream. This is a more substantial buttercream, because you will see in the recipe, it has kind of like an Italian meringue. So you have to make your sugar syrup and bring it to about 240 degrees, which is fine if you've got a candy thermometer. I grew up in New Zealand, and we always just used ice cold water and put a teaspoon in, and as soon as it got cold and you could roll it into a very soft ball, you knew that it was right to use. So you have your 5 egg egg yolks, not whites. We use the whites for something else. We have in here some orange flavored liqueur. And I am doing chocolate orange because I kind of like that combination. You can use any flavoring you want, or you can leave it out altogether. So we've got our chocolate flavored liqueur, and then you slowly pour your very hot sugar syrup into your egg yolks with your mixer beating. And it takes about 5 minutes till it cools down enough that you want to add your butter. You add 4½ sticks of butter, a little bit at a time, beat it in, you get this nice rich mixture. And then I put in 4 tablespoons of frozen orange juice concentrate and my 11 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate that I had chopped up and melted in the microwave and then allowed to cool down before I mixed it into my mixture. Please use very good chocolate. The baker's chocolate from the supermarket, we all know that goes into cakes, but not into anything that you want to be nice and creamy and smooth. So good chocolate, and you've got your frosting already made. It really works best if it can sit in the refrigerator for a little bit just to set it up. I actually made this last night, and it's been sitting out today where it's warm here, so it's softened up a little bit. The third component and I know I'm going through this very quickly because we're running out of time, is our mushroom meringues. And this is always such a favorite, particularly when my grandchildren were small. So two egg whites, because you've got plenty of egg whites left over. And by the way, they freeze very well. So I usually freeze egg whites in plastic freezer bags. And 1 egg white is 1 fluid ounce. So I can mix it. If I need 4 egg whites, I just use ½ a cup of it, pour it in and use it. Okay, so I've got the egg whites, a pinch of salt, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and 2 tablespoons of powdered sugar. You make this nice meringue, put it in a piping bag, and I just piped out these little circles. And with a damp finger, just press the top down a little bit. And then these little stems. So I've got those there. They go in a very, very low oven, and I put them in late last night, and when they were cooked, just turned the oven off and left them in overnight. Now, to get these ready to use, I just put a little hole in the bottom here, get my stem. Whoops, that's a little bit much, but that's all right. Oh, and then I crushed it. Okay, so I've got this in here, and somewhere I have just a little cocoa, put a little sprinkling of cocoa on top, and we've got our little mushrooms that we are going to put around our bûche de Noël to decorate it. So while I was watching today, I thought, oh, we're going to be running out of time, and I know I've only got 5 minutes. So I actually filled it and put some frosting on the outside. Now, I filled it with my chocolate frosting. If you want it not quite so sweet, you could use whipped cream and put some berries in there. And often I'll put orange slices or segments in the center, just cuts the sweetness a little bit, but I didn't do that this time. So I'm going to just cut the end off here. And let me put it right there.
Over. Good.
So we've got a little, and I know I'm running out of time. Just give me another minute. So we've got this. I've got my decoration here. Put that, and it's plastic so that you can just wash it. What I do with these. Here we go. Our little mushrooms right here. Put 3 of those there. And my little snow. And it does snow here in Arizona on the odd century. Down here in Tucson. Okay, so here we go with our finished, and I will often do both ends. So I've got 2 of our little branch stumps here, but this is what it looks like. And without it being decorated, you can freeze it, which is what I'm going to do with this. But obviously it tastes better like right now. So thank you very much, and hope you all have a wonderful holiday season.
Thank you, Judith. And thank you to all of our speakers for sharing with us food, beauty, and new ways to love old friends and new friends during the holiday season. Tomorrow from 4 o'clock to 5:30 Eastern Time, the Washington, D.C. Regional Chapter will present their 3rd annual Holiday Tips program online. And the event is free. You can register. I put the link in the chat. Kathy Gold told me that it was the wrong link. But if you go to the LDEI.org, you can find the link to register for that program. And they're featuring 5 or 6 speakers. Carrie Kelly will be one of them, but she'll be talking on a different subject. We hope you will join us on December 9th from 12 to 1 Eastern Time for a calming meditation especially for culinary professionals, led by Melanie Underwood. Melanie worked in restaurant kitchens. She taught for 25 years at the Institute for Culinary Education in New York, and now she teaches culinary and also meditation in the New York metro area. She began learning about meditation years ago when she was afflicted with anxiety while working as a restaurant pastry chef. Don't miss this unique opportunity to decompress with the guidance of an enlightened professional, both in culinary and in mindfulness meditation. Happy Thanksgiving. This is Sheila Fry wishing you an excellent holiday season. So long for now.